I love the hat, Steve.
There's our fearless leader.
I feel like though I have to take it off before we get too deep into this. It's not becoming, the office of chairman of the zoning board.
It's fine.
I have some reindeer antlers I could put on.
Claire, I would welcome that. I'd feel a little less, exposed here.
We can get them on if you want.
All right, Chris.
Well, Steve tells me where the fire exits are.
Cool. All right. How are we doing on attendance here, Chris? I'm just checking it myself.
We're golden.
Cool. All right.
Thought I saw 8 now, if I'm right.
Yeah, I think we're good. Scott
Everyone.
here. Where's Scott?
Scott's,
Scott.
actually, he's right next to you on my screen.
Yeah. Tom's not supposed to be here, so I think we're good.
I think we're good. All right.
not
Sorry,
gonna
friends.
work.
I'm going to take my hat off. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. And we see Mr. Ball in lieu of Mr. Galvin this evening. Hello, Mr. Ball.
Hello.
All right. All right, Chris. Where's Michelle? Michelle, you good?
Yep, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Good evening. And one sec. My internet's a little choppy here. Hold on, friends. My apologies.
Yeah, you're breaking up now.
Yeah, one sec, guys. I'm just going to switch over here. One sec. I've got a couple of Netflix accounts going live here at my house here. So
Can we go to Netflix? Chris, you had a short meeting last night.
Oh, you were watching, right?
Well, I thought I don't know why I was one of the dummies who thought it was last night.
all right, let's try that. All right. Hello, everyone. Here we go. Good evening and welcome to the December 22nd, 2020 meeting of the City of Summit Zoning Board of Adjustment. My name is Stephen Spur, and I am the chairman of the Summit Zoning Board. In accordance with New Jersey Statute 10:4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to a newspaper of record and has been posted here in City Hall. This meeting is your judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times, hence the removal of my Santa hat. This meeting is being conducted virtually via video conferencing in lieu of meeting in the council chamber at Summit City Hall, Summit, New Jersey. This meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube page. In addition, members of the public can view and participate in the meeting by following the link provided on the agenda. Members of the public may also submit written comments and questions to the zoning board secretary in advance of the meeting to be read aloud during this meeting. Such written comments shall not be considered testimonial and shall not be considered by the board in its determination on any application. Individuals wishing to provide testimony as to any application must participate virtually with both audio and video enabled. This evening, Andy Ball is representing the zoning board as its attorney. He will advise the board members on matters of law and is the key interface with the applicant's attorney. Mr. Ball does not vote on the applications. Chris Nicola is a city employee and is the zoning board secretary. Mr. Nicola works with applicants on getting their applications together, planning our agendas, and keeping our meeting minutes. Mr. Nicola does not vote on the applications. Our board consists of 7 regular members and up to 4 alternates. All members can participate in the hearings tonight, but a maximum of 7 can vote. Most applications require a simple majority to be approved. Some applications require 5 affirmative votes to be approved. You'll be told which majority will be required before we begin our deliberations. Mr. Nicola, will you please call the roll of members?
Yes. Chairman Spur,
Here.
who's playing the soothing music? The Vice Chairwoman Newell.
Here.
Mr. Yuko is excused. Mr. Steiner.
Here.
Mr. Mullen.
Here.
Ms. Schwartzstein.
Here.
Mr. Malay.
Here.
Mr. Loikitz.
Here.
And Ms. Toth.
Yeah.
We have a quorum. We can proceed.
If you're not speaking, just as a reminder, if you can please mute your microphone to be helpful to cut off any background music or or noise for that matter. Thank you. We generally the cases in the order they are listed on the agenda. We try to have each hearing last no more than 30 minutes, but we do understand that some cases are too complex to be heard within that time frame. Each hearing begins with the applicant or their attorney giving an overview of the application and the variances that are required. We then hear from any expert witnesses the applicant may have to help explain the application and why the variances are needed. The board members may ask any questions of the applicant, their attorney, and the expert witnesses. Once the board members and the board professionals are done with their questioning, the public will have an opportunity to ask questions. This is not the time to tell us what you think about this case. That opportunity comes at the end of the hearing. Before you ask your questions, we need to know who you are and where you live. But it is important that our court reporter be able to keep a clear and accurate public record. Please state your name before speaking or asking a question, and please do not talk over each other. This is even more important under the current circumstances. After all witnesses have been heard, members of the audience have their second opportunity to speak, and at that time you may express your opinion, positive or negative, about the application. Then the public hearing was closed and we go into executive session where the board members discuss the case and vote. You will be able to listen to our executive session, but you will not normally be able to participate in the discussion. Most applications are heard and decided in the same evening. If a case requires additional information or testimony that cannot be presented tonight, we will carry your case to another date and it will not be decided tonight. Krista Anderson, the city zoning officer, has asked that I remind all applicants that they must read carefully the resolution that documents the zoning board's decision, and to pay particular attention to the conditions contained in the resolution. For example, if a landscaping plan is required, you must obtain one and submit it to John Linson, the city's forester. If a grading plan is required, you must have one prepared by a civil engineer and submit 3 copies along with the application fee to the city's engineering division. Failure to satisfy all conditions in a resolution will result in a delay in approving your application, as it will cause extra work for city zoning staff. The resolutions documenting the board's decision will normally be available 1 month after we decide the case. When I call your name, please tell me how many witnesses you have and whether you think you can complete your case within 30 minutes. First on the agenda is Christopher and Miriam Zahn, 65 Woodland Avenue.
Good evening.
Zahns, you're here.
Yes.
Hello.
So we do believe we could complete this in 30 minutes. Besides myself and my husband, we have Carolyn Young, our architect, and Jeff DeRosier, our engineer, present.
Excellent. All right. And then the second case we have is 39 Park Avenue Builders, I believe represented by Mr. Sheehan. Mr. Sheehan, you're here?
I am, Mr. Chairman, and that has 4 witnesses. Will take longer than 30 minutes.
Excellent. All right. And then just for the board's knowledge, and Andy, you can inject any additional color you care to here. One of the agenda items for this evening was the appointment of our board professionals for 2021. Kind of following some further discussion with our board attorney, we decided that it would instead be prudent to carry that agenda item to the first meeting of 2021. So for your knowledge, nothing has changed. It's just a procedural note that we're going to instead carry that on after the city's reorganization has been completed, so that we have our full board for 2021 able to vote on that agenda item. So one thing off the agenda for tonight, at least. Anything you'd like to add to that, Andy? We don't have to go too far into the details of that discussion.
You summarized it perfectly.
All right, thank you, Andy. Cool. All right, we'll start first with 65 Winlet Avenue. Fortunately or unfortunately, I am recused from that, and I will hand it over to my able vice chair, Miss Liz Newell. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Mr. and Mrs. Zarin, are you ready to go?
Yep. Thank you for hearing our case tonight. So,
All right, let me just swear you in before you get started. If you could each please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes.
And could you each please state your name, spell your last name for the record?
Miriam Zahn, Z-A-H-N.
Christopher Zahn, Z-A-H-N.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your project?
Sure. So we have 4 kids. We've lived in Summit for 13 years. Our family needs are changing. And we recently decided to look for a house that could better suit our needs. We love the town and wanted to stay in Summit, as much for ourselves as for our kids who have, go to school here and have all their friends here. In our home search, we came across 65 Woodland. To be frank, the house had been neglected, and it's in need of significant renovation inside and out. If I can do the screen share, let me see if I set it up right. Share, let's see. So that's a picture of the front of the house. Without going through too many pictures, their kitchen cabinets are falling apart. The shingles are rotted. The wood frames are rotted. Half the windows don't open. There's knob and tube wiring in the house. So yeah, the house needs a lot of work, but despite that, we find it charming. It has a lot of character. It's one of these houses that I think people describe as having good bones, but it's actually anxiously waiting to be revived. And, with your approval, we're, hoping to be able to make it a home that's suitable not only for our family, but also improve the look of the neighborhood. So as we mentioned tonight, you'll be hearing from the engineer, Jeff DeRosier, and also our architect, Carolyn Young. And I just want to thank all of you for taking the time to meet us. We know that your jobs have been complicated by having to do all of this work remotely with COVID. So we are extremely appreciative of this opportunity to, meet with you now.
Especially so close to the holidays.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for the summary. Any questions from the board?
Just a quick one for procedurally. When was that picture taken? Who took it and all that? That's necessary for the record.
I took that picture today. So.
It kind of looked like what I saw today, yes.
Yeah, there's still stuff on the ground and we shoveled ourselves a little path. Yeah.
We saw it. Did someone say something?
Yeah, I am. Was that in the exhibit packet that was submitted today?
No, I literally took that picture this evening going by before sunset. I didn't know if, I didn't know that had to be submitted, but I can certainly email it to you.
Yeah, we'll mark it as A3.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay.
Mr. and Mrs. Zam, would you like to have Carolyn Young go first?
I think we'd like Jeff to go first, if that's okay.
That's fine. Mr. Dossier?
Good evening. How is everyone tonight?
You have to be
Swear you
sworn.
in. If you can raise your right hand, and do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matters the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Jeff DeRosier, DeRosier. Would you like my credentials as well?
Please.
Licensed professional engineer in New Jersey since 2005. I've provided testimony before numerous boards, including Pequannock, Randolph, West New York. I've sat as a board engineer for several municipalities, over the last 15 years of practicing engineering.
Okay. Thank you. We accept your credentials.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Chris, do you want me to share my screen for the exhibits?
Yeah, if you have them ready, go ahead.
Okay. So we have, let me just. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you started?
Yeah, I clicked the button. It's says I'm screen sharing, but I don't see. Do you see?
Right now it's black. I see your cursor is moving, but that's it.
Okay, so I have two exhibits. The first exhibit A1 is revised plans that address some of the board comments that were provided. Primarily be speaking to two sheets, C201, which is sheet 2 of 3, and sheet 301, which is sheet 3 of 3. The first one's the layout plan, the second one's the grading plan, as well as photographs taken by me, put into a package These were taken on November 2nd of this year. Okay, so, and is it okay to refer to Google Maps as well?
Yeah, if it's not marked, you'll have to send it and then.
I mean, that's just on the internet. I could take a screenshot and send it. So just to give everyone an idea of where the house is situated, you know, it's on the north side of town. As you go past Lincoln Hubbard School, you come down Woodland Avenue, which is a hill with some curves in it, and the house is situated right here. I'm going to go to the photographs. Okay. So photo 1 is a picture of the house looking from the downhill side of Woodland Avenue. You're looking at, you know, the front of the house here. You can see the curve here. The driveway is on the upslope, which is on the right side. Very similar to the photo Miriam just showed you, you know, elevation of the front. House is situated, you know, setback from the street, consistent with the other houses along the street. There's a side yard on the left. There's a view of the side yard. This is the neighbor's fence, a small tree here. The existing driveway, there is a curb along, you know, this side, but it's basically a gravel driveway that extends only to about midpoint of the dumpster, you know, a little in front of the front yard. And then you continue down the side yard. This is looking from the rear yard up towards where the driveway would come. This is where, you know, we will eventually build a driveway. You see the rear view of the house, which is a 3-story house with a 2-story extension off the back. There's a couple of trees that are on the adjacent property just past the property line. This is looking from, you know, that area towards the backyard. You'll see those 2 trees, and you'll see that the surrounding properties to the right and the rear form a bowl with a low area in the back of this property. So you actually have about 10 to 11 properties that are up, you know, along this area that actually, you know, discharge runoff down into this area. And when you go into the back, there's not really any place for the runoff to go. So it kind of just, you know, pulls and seeps into the ground in that back area. This is to the left. There's some wood, you know, trees on the other side of the rear yard. This is in the back corner of the lot. You can see the iron pin that's here and basically standing on the corner of the property. This is looking back up the hill towards the right side. So you can see the garage of the adjacent property over there. Also, you know, detached dwelling situated in the back. Panning to the right, you can see the adjacent house. You can see this house, some of the trees that are located on the side yard, and then just a little further you can see the existing fence. Up in the front it's a lower fence, so you get to the back it's a higher fence. And then that's a close-up of the rear of the property. Okay. This is the left side yard, just to give you an idea. There's some downspouts and stuff that come down. So all the runoff from the house works its way down the side yards and to the back. And then that's looking to the front. So one of the things, let's go back up to the first photo here. You know, backing out of this driveway onto Woodland Avenue is a safety concern. You know, Woodland Avenue has no parking area. There's a lot of traffic. You got the school there, and there's some curves. So, and as you go in the other direction, it actually curves to the right. So, you know, some sight distance concerns and things like that. So in an ideal situation, we want to, you know, certainly have cars be able to turn around on the site. Now I'm going to go to the site plan. And we have a table of the zoning analysis up here to the right, which I'll refer to some of the numbers in there, and, you know, look at the plan view. So the existing house is situated here. We're proposing to remove the stairway, which you can see right here, and the addition that's off the back of the house here. to square up that house, and then there'll be an addition that comes off the back with a deck. There'll be an entrance that used to come here, it'll come out the side, a new driveway down the right side of the house to a detached garage, which is consistent with, some of the neighboring properties in this part of the community. And, for a lot that is narrow like this, there's no room to have a garage, into the back, unless you were to tuck it in real close. The variances that we're looking for, the existing lot width is 62 feet, where 75 feet is required. The existing house structure is 39.63 feet tall from the average grade plane, where 35 feet is allowed. We are actually going to modify the grading along the sides of the house. As the house gets longer, we're going to, smooth out the driveway, and it's going to bring the average grade up. We're actually going to improve that condition by about 7.5 inches. So we're going to reduce the building height to 39 feet. It should be noted that the addition is not a 3-story addition. It's only a 2-story addition. And the existing 3 stories, which is also an existing nonconformity, where 2 is allowed. The building cover and the impervious cover both have variances. The building cover, we are proposing 19.1%, where 18% is allowed. And I'd like to point out that one of the comments from the zoning officer had a different number in here. She included the deck. The definition of building coverage in the ordinance states that all covered structures and structures with a roof are considered buildings. And after that, it says if a deck has a roof, it would be a part of the building coverage. But in this case, the deck does not have a roof. So it's our opinion that the deck is not included as building coverage. The impervious coverage is 41.1%, where 35% is allowed. This is driven partly because of the turnaround requirements and the position of the garage. So the garage is positioned in the back right corner. It meets the setbacks for accessory structures, and the driveway as it comes past the house is maintained, at a minimum width, 10 feet. And then it flares out to allow access to the 2 cars into the garage. And because the Zahn family has more than 2 cars, we anticipate there being a car parked in the driveway itself. So we provided an area where they could pull that car around the side of the garage and allow cars to turn around into this area. It is 32 feet from this edge to this edge, which is enough room to do a K-turn and be able to get the car out and out to the street so that you're pulling out face first. At this point, I would like to go through the professional reports and touch on a few of the comments that were provided. I'll leave the plans up. So we already talked about the variances. In the zoning officer's report, there was some different numbers presented than what we have here. There was a correction when the grade plane calculation was done. There was a spot shot that was typed wrong, and that threw the calculation off. So that's been corrected on this plan, and that's why the numbers that I'm presenting and testifying to tonight are slightly different than what was in the report. These are the grade plane calculations that are here. I know there was a comment looking for them. They were on the plans. We've already talked about the coverages. So there was a comment on building height having a maximum of 40 feet. I could not find that in the code, so I would just ask if the zoning officer could, point us to that spot. And if there's a variance for building height, it would be to the existing non-conforming ridge of the roof. The addition is well below the building height, and I'll let the architect, show you the elevation and speak to that. I believe a survey was provided in the package. So I think I'm on the engineer's comments right now. That's number 6. There was a comment regarding the neighbor's fence being in 3 feet or 3.3 feet, which is 4 inches into the adjacent property, which is appropriate because it is the neighbor's fence. Comment number 12 asked about a generator. My understanding is the owner does not intend to put a generator. Comment number 13 was discussing trees and any potential landscaping. We are going to be removing 3 trees, one in this location. This is a very small tree, and there's one on the corner here. And that's to make room for the garage. I understand that if any trees over 16 inches would require a permit. I do believe an approval of a site plan would constitute a permit, but I'll let your attorney clarify that. The forester also provided some comments on landscaping. The owner does intend to provide, landscaping at some point, in the front and stuff. As far as any screening, the ordinance does not require screening from residential properties to residential. And where the garage is, we're within 5 feet of the property line on this side. So putting screening there would just, have trees that end up growing in and potentially damage the structure. They're also situated under, an area with existing trees, probably wouldn't grow. I'm going to actually switch over back to a photograph. This is the area behind where the garage is. You can see there's some large trees and woods in that zone. The adjacent property is also situated quite high up on a slope. So screening here, even if it was provided, wouldn't necessarily really be needed. The other discussion was on screening along the driveway. At this point, we don't intend to provide any. We feel it would enclose the property. And if you look through the neighborhood, there's a lot of instances where there's no screening. And as I stated, the ordinance does not require screening residential to residential. We've already talked about the turnaround, which was comment number 14. And I believe the last remaining items were dealing with comment 18 and comment number 10. Both had to do with stormwater. On the grading plan, I've provided a stormwater management analysis over in this area. We are increasing the impervious cover on the lot by 2,794 square feet. And this property is unique in a sense because of the basin and the bowl that's basically formed by the backyard and the adjacent properties up around here. So in the existing condition, roof runoff discharges from the roof leaders along the side here, and they're labeled as typical and shown on this plan. And we intend to just maintain that existing pattern. The roof runoff is going to come down to the back. Here it's going to slope down to the driveway and work its way down to this low point in front of the garage, and then go out and work its way back into this area. And any runoff that comes down from the existing neighbor will work its way down along here and would be able to get directed around the back of the garage. We've set the garage up a little bit above the existing grade. So in the existing condition, there's no runoff that actually leaves this property. And in the proposed condition, there's no runoff that actually leaves this property. And therefore, the design is in compliance with the standards. I believe that concludes my testimony for now.
Great, thank you. Mr. Ball, can you clarify the D6 variance? I know we had questions about that.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in on a couple things because I know there were a few points in the testimony. One of the points was the definition of building area, building coverage, and whether that includes the deck. The definition under your DROs is that, horizontal plan projection of all covered or roofed areas on a lot, whether permanent or temporary, including decks, and it goes on and on. It doesn't have to be covered and roofed. A deck would cover an area. So therefore, I think Krista's calculation, including that deck area within the building area, was the correct one. And that if the board was going to be considering the variance here, we should use that increased building area number just to be sure it's entirely covered. As far as the height increase, I think there was an additional email today, asking about that. The height of the addition is still more than 10%. So it triggers the D6 variance that would still be required, even though it's lower than the remainder of the house. It still would come in, and the board should again consider this as a D6 as to that aspect of the application.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Anyone from the board have any questions?
I have a question, Liz. Hi.
Okay.
I have to change my view because okay. This is about the water runoff. So the way you're describing it, I guess the water is just going to run off to the backyard, right? But there's no seepage pit, or are you designing any seepage pit or dry well?
It's not our intent to design a dry well. Right now, the runoff, as it currently flows, goes to a low point. It seeps into the ground over time. And in the proposed condition, that will be the same condition. A dry well, the standard approach or situation that you have for runoff is your runoff is actually leaving your property and going somewhere else. It's going to the public right away. It's flowing downstream onto someone else's property. Stormwater management rules are intended to minimize downstream impacts as a result of additional runoff. Okay. So in this case, because we have no runoff going downstream, the rule, the intent of the rule is met. And, you could provide a dry well here, we'd have to go out and do soil exploration and a whole bunch of stuff. But it's, all it's going to do is move the same runoff that's going into the ground at that location. Instead of ponding on the surface, it's just going to be below grade.
Well, I'm just wondering, because we have a lot of water issues in Summit, if it actually does get absorbed in that area, or if you are aware of whether it actually sits back there, how long it's sitting back there, because it did look like there was a slope. Like you indicated that the properties behind that house were much higher, were elevated. And if you're improving the house, and they sound like very good improvements so far, I just want to make sure that backyard doesn't become unusable because there's so much water ponding back there, if that could somehow be alleviated.
We would actually love to alleviate that through a solution working with the town, because in this case, there's actually runoff coming from adjacent properties onto my client's property. But we feel that at this point, that's a separate discussion with the town engineer, and we are not making any adverse impacts to anyone else's property.
Can we ask Mr. Dower to perhaps give us the city's interpretation of the opinion that the expert has provided, because I'm not sure I agree with it.
As my letter recommends, is that they should handle the increase in impervious coverage on site, and that would be through a dry well, and that will alleviate any ponding caused by the runoff, the stormwater, increased stormwater from the driveway and the garage and the building addition. Regarding,
so is that a condition that the owners are willing to accept? I don't think their engineer is, but.
Unmute us. I think that the real question here is, for Jeff's point, is that right now all of our stormwater, all of our runoff is going to stay on our property. So if there is some ponding and it has to seep, that's, it takes a little time to dissipate. That's something that right now we're aware that that would be a condition. We're also aware that several properties around us do discharge their runoff onto our property. So that's a separate condition. And that's where, where we would like to work with the town at some point on addressing that, because that's probably the larger issue than our own property. My question about the dry well is, does that make our backyard even usable? Because there's probably, if we work with the town to address the issue with the neighboring properties, seeing as we are the bowl and everything collects on our property, I just wonder, a dry well, the size of a dry well that would be required would probably, and Jeff can speak to this, render much of our backyard as being unusable, when the real problem is not the runoff from our own property, it's the runoff from other properties. And we would like to address that. I'm not, we're open to addressing, we would like to address the water on the property, but we want to do it the right way, where we're addressing all of the parts, even the parts that are out of our control. I don't want to have to be managing the runoff from other people's houses in our dry well, because our dry well is going to, expand.
It doesn't
Well,
work that way. Yeah. I don't think it works that way.
Yeah, as you noted, the runoff from your neighbor's property is a separate issue that you'd have to take up with the city engineer's office. But as far as the increase in impervious coverage, the driveway, the garage, and the building addition is going to make the current ponding situation worse. The dry well, really, you will not see the dry well. The dry well will be below your backyard. So it's not going to do anything as far as rendering that useless. It'll actually increase the value of your backyard, because all that water that would be ponding is now going to be handled underground through the seepage pit.
Right. I think what I also kind of hear coming out is that while I understand that you're getting water from your neighbors, there's also the possibility that you could improve your property and also the overall condition by having a dry well. Whereas if you just don't do anything and you increase this impervious coverage, that situation in the backyard could get worse, and then could also, I mean, I don't know the whole topography, but could possibly impact other people as well. So,
I think Jeff could speak to whether it is likely to impact other people. For ourselves, I mean, we're certainly open. We want to make our backyard usable, and we want to make it right. I mean, we want to put it, set it up in the way that is most usable. So if the best solution is a dry well, then that's the solution we would pursue. If there is another management solution, that's, we want to make sure we're pursuing the best solution for the property.
So can we put some sort of condition in the application?
Well, but yeah, I mean, I would just ask if the condition, David, would specify the size of the dry well, or does the condition just simply say we would put in a dry well? Because to the points before, how big should the dry well be given the unknown of the water coming from the other property? So I would just be concerned about a sort of a slippery slope, so to speak, of the dry well. So yes, we're absolutely in favor of whatever condition you lay out. I would just be interested in knowing, is it a specific size that dry well would have to be?
Chris, could you work that out with the the engineer?
We can work it out. And to answer your question, it would be your increase in impervious coverage would be what would make the determination with the size of the seepage pit. So that's kind of that's a given number.
Okay.
Is there a depth that the town, depth of runoff for volume sizing?
Usually 3 inches.
Okay, is that changed at all now that the state only limits 1.25?
Not that I'm aware of. I'd have to check the ordinance. I don't know if that's changed, been updated.
Well, I can design a dry well. We would have to go out and verify the soil capacity and all that stuff. And I can work with Mr. Dower to appropriately size that as a condition.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Chris, didn't you have something else to add? I kind of cut you off like mid-sentence. I guess not.
Any other questions from the board?
I just had one, going back to the comment about the deck. I was curious, what's the height of the deck that's being proposed?
I think the architect will testify to that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from our board professionals? Seeing none. Any questions from the public?
I don't have a question, but I'm happy to make a comment.
That'll come a little bit later.
Okay.
Thank
perfect.
you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Anyone else? I'm just like scanning through. Yep.
I have a question.
Can you state your name and your address, please?
My name is Anthony Radice, Radice, and I live at the house next door at 69 Woodland Avenue.
Okay.
It's the one where the fence is.
Okay.
So my question is on the plans for the backyard, there is a drain in the backyard that was not included on the plan. It's a drain that runs in the backyard, 15 feet off my fence, that runs under my property to the storm drain on Woodland Avenue.
So I did not see a drain.
It's definitely back there, right in the middle. It's covered with bricks back there.
Okay, so it's quite possible there is something there. The
There is.
surveyor did not show it. And I did look in the inlet that is in front of your property, and I saw what looked like a 2-inch pipe that came into the side of the inlet from your property, the direction of your property. So that may be the discharge point. But from a grading perspective, I can testify to the fact that the backyard is significantly lower than that point, and a 2-inch pipe would be indicative of a pump discharge. So if there is a drain structure there, it is most likely an old sump pit that was intended to have a pump, which would make sense given the scenario that I just described.
I'm not sure I understand. I'm not sure I understand.
Water flows downhill unless pumped. So
right.
Given the grade, it has to pump because it's a low point.
But it's going under, you're talking about where the drain is in the backyard, correct?
I have not observed a drain in the backyard, but
Yes.
based on what you've testified.
Yes, it runs from the yard under my driveway to the front of my house into this storm drain.
Okay.
And the neighbors, and because of the trees there and all of the leaves that collect there, that area is at the lowest point and collects a lot of water. If you go back there, even today, there's about 2 inches, 3 inches of water back there. And when we get significant rains, it covers my backyard. It covers at least 15 feet into my yard. And when it rains heavily, it goes.
Sorry, let me cut you off here. You're getting a bit into testimony. That's supposed to
Okay, I'm sorry.
Portion later. If you have questions for the engineer, you can propose them now, but any additional comments or testimony are for a later portion.
Okay, thank you. I will wait.
Thank you. Any other questions from neighbors? Okay. Oh, Mrs. Engel, unmute yourself.
I'm Sarah Engel, and I live at 75 Woodland Avenue. I had a question, maybe for the city engineer. I thought it was required when you put in a new driveway to do a water analysis.
it wouldn't be a water analysis. New driveway would be increased impervious coverage, so you would have to add a seepage pit, depending on the increase. So, and that's what we were talking about before. So the increase in impervious coverage includes the additional coverage for the driveway, as well as the garage and the addition on the back of the house.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. We're going to go on to your second professional, Mrs. Young. Unmute yourself, please. There you go.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
All right. And if I could swear you in, please raise
Certainly.
your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Carolyn Young, Y-O-U-N-G, architect.
And have you, can you name 3 councils that you performed in front of, not including Sentiment?
Morristown, Madison, Maniloking, Long Branch, Mendham.
Okay, thank you. You accept your credentials.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Okay. I wanted Jeff to go first tonight because I think so many of these issues are relating to, to the average grade calculations and the coverage topics. So architecturally, I think that our project is fairly straightforward. This is an existing old house, which is both currently non-conforming in a couple of ways, but it's an old home which also is in need of updating and repair. Primarily, the architectural changes to the existing home have focused on construction of a 2-story addition to the rear of the house that will allow the house to have improved spaces, up-to-date kitchen, improved bathrooms, better bedroom layouts, mudroom, overall bringing the house into a useful state for today. We know that the existing home is 3 stories. We also know that the existing home, according to the average grade calculation, is 39.63 feet high. That's an existing fact, and it's nothing that we are changing. In fact, with the 2-story addition that we're putting on the back of the house, we are actually bringing down the average grade by 0.63 feet, or about 7 inches when you take the average grade. The other existing non-conforming issue with the house is that it does not have the required garage. Houses in Summit are required to have a garage, so that is an existing non-conforming condition and one that we are here tonight to bring into conformance. I think with that, I will try to share my screen and I can walk you through our drawings. Hopefully. Okay. 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 There are three drawings that we have prepared: ZV1, ZV2, and ZV3.
We're not seeing anything yet.
Here we go. You see that now?
You have to.
You have a black screen in front of it.
All right, hold on.
Now you have me in front of that.
I know. All right.
Move me over.
move you.
That's it.
That,
A little further over to your left. To the other way. Get in the middle there and then drag it.
okay. All right. I'm going to
There you
open
go.
ZV2. So we have it, and ZV3. Okay. So on ZV1, we are showing you the proposed plans. The hatched areas that you see are the proposed renovation, the proposed addition. We're actually removing an existing two-story addition that was done at some date to the back of the house, and we're constructing a new addition. It's comprised of a basement level, which is illustrated here, a first floor level, which is primarily kitchen and breakfast area, along with a bump out on the front of the house, which is under the covered porch. And on the second floor of the house, we're bumping out to the back in order to create a better bedroom and better bathroom configuration. We're doing other renovations as well, like creating a master bathroom, etc. You'll notice that the attic floor plan of the house, which is the existing attic of the house and the non-conforming third floor, you will see that we are not doing any additions to that level of the house. There is nothing hatched. There is no addition. The two-story addition has roof on top of it, which is to the back of the house, but it is not accessible space. It is below the height that would make it any kind of a story. The existing third floor of the house, the only modifications that are being made is the relocation of a window, which is allowed in your ordinance to happen as long as we're not adding windows. And we are otherwise doing interior alterations. I will also mention that the design was also very cautiously done in order to be respectful of the floor area ratio that's allowed for the property. So we have added enough square footage to accomplish our needs, but we are also complying with the FAR that is allowed. And that was very carefully done so that we were being in keeping with the zoning ordinance. So ZV2, actually I'll go to ZV3 first. On ZV3, we also have some photographs at the top of the page, similar to the ones that you've been seeing so far, except it's obviously taken earlier in the fall because the lawn was actually green. But once again, we are talking about this existing house, which is again 3 stories with the height of the ridge exceeding the 35-foot limit. It's at the 39.63 that we keep talking about. That is existing, it is not changing. The back of the house, which we've also seen other images of, you can see the ridge of the house, which once again is the existing condition. And you see this small bump out, which I made reference to when we looked at the floor plans, which is what we're tearing off in order to add our addition. This third photo is very similar to what Jeff showed because it's showing the right back corner of the property where we're proposing the detached garage. The rest of this page is showing you the existing floor plans of the house and the existing elevations. Again, the front elevation, the rear elevation are just graphics of what we just saw in photographs, and the side elevation and the other side elevation. This is illustrating the existing condition. Once again, the height that we keep talking about is identified here on each of these drawings. I don't think I need to go through the existing floor plans, but they're there for reference and any questions that you may have. So ZV2 is the drawing that discusses the proposed elevations of the house. Here we see the front elevation. We see the bump out that I discussed in plan to extend the size of the living room. And once again, we see the front elevation of the house with nothing else being changed or impacted. Obviously, we're changing windows and updating all types of elements of the house, but nothing architecturally is changing except for that bay, which is underneath the existing porch. I'll take us to, because that's better, a little bigger. And this is the right side of the house, which is where the driveway is going to be located, coming down the side of the house. Once again, this line is where the existing 3-story house ends. And this is our proposed addition, which is once again the basement, 1st floor, 2nd floor with the roof. This is the deck to the rear. The question that was just asked about the height of the deck, it's about 6 feet above the finished grade. So we can discuss that in comments. And here's the rear elevation of the house. Again, the existing house is here beyond. The addition is this area. We have the basement level. You see the deck here, the 1st floor, the 2nd floor, and the roof that covers the 2-story addition that is not 3rd floor or even usable attic space. It is just roof. And this is the other side elevation. Once again, all the same comments. The end of the existing house, the heights that are indicated here, where the average height, let me zoom into this one for us. The average grade currently is 365.13, which creates an existing building height of 39.63. The proposed average grade is 365.76, which creates a new proposed building height of the existing building only of 39 feet. So we have an actual reduction in the existing 3-story house of its overall height from 39.63 to 39 feet 0. The addition, which you see back here from the average grade plane that's proposed, will be 33.04 feet, which is less than 35 feet, and it does comply with the 35-foot height in your ordinance. I think there's been some confusion about that. Not quite clear from what Mr. Ball said before, if that was his understanding or not. I think that walks you through the drawings and, you know, hopefully identifies the design for you. There were some comments, there were not too many architectural comments in the review. We will be complying with smoke detectors and egress windows and all those types of things that were in the reports. That will of course be done when we get to the construction drawings of the project. I think that really, and just in summary, I think that this is that the design and the proposed improvements are beneficial and allow for this rather stately old home to continue to be part of the architectural fabric of downtown Summit. What we are doing architecturally is trying to be sensitive to the original building, to improve the aesthetics, although most of it is happening to the back of the property. But For the homeowner's sake, we want to aesthetically improve it. And all of the renovations that are going to go on to the main house to replace windows, improve sidings, take care of repairs, add the garage, create the driveway with turning area for cars. Everything that's being done here is in the interest of keeping the existing 3-story house and bringing it up to date for today, and also making it a safe, lovely home that is improved from what is there now. So I hope that worked.
Thank you. Are you complete?
I'm complete.
Okay, great. Any questions from the board?
Give me a minute to get back to the group view? How do I
Sure.
do that? Oh, there you go. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions from the board?
I think I'd like to jump in just so we could get a clarification of the calculations for the height of this addition. Because I'm looking back at the notes from Krista, I'm looking back at the communications from the engineer, and I just want to be sure everyone's on the same page. Can you confirm what the existing grade plane elevation and then the resulting building height of that particular addition will be?
Yes, I'm happy to try to clarify this, because it was a little confusing to all of us at first. And it's been a little bit, it's even a little more confusing because, as Jeff said, he had a number that got flipped around. So my drawings have bubbles on them. I didn't really specify to that point, but I have bubbled what has been revised from the drawings that Krista saw. So the existing house is 3 stories. The grade plane is calculated at 365.13 of the existing house. That is different from the drawing that Krista reviewed because of a miscalculation that Jeff had made. So Krista reviewed a drawing that called the grade plane 367.16, which, as she wrote in her notes, the proposed grade plane is 365.76. And in her comments, she said that's an increase of 1.4 feet to the height of the existing 3-story house. What I just went through was trying to explain that we're not changing the 3-story house, and our addition is 2 stories. The other thing that was different tonight from what Krista saw is that tonight we have presented the corrected grade plane as 365.13, which puts the existing grade plane as a lower height than the new grade plane with the addition, which the proposed grade plane is the same thing as Krista reviewed at 365.76, which actually means that the grade plane, the height, due to the grade plane, the height of the existing 3-story house will be 0.63 of a foot less than its current height. Speaking to the addition, that's the existing house. That's only about the existing house that has been there since it was constructed probably in the 20s. The addition that we're putting on the back of the house is a 2-story addition. It does not in any way become a 3-story addition. It conforms to your zoning height of 35 feet. It is less than that. It's 33 feet, 0.04. And it is a 2-story addition with a basement. is that clearer, Mr. Ball?
I believe so. I still do think, because I'm looking again at it typed out from your engineer today. So correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is the reduction in the building height will result in the current building being 39.00. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And it was noted that that number still exceeds the 10% threshold technically in the ordinance, which I do believe would trigger the D6 requirement. So I'm still going to stick with the recommendation that the board does treat this with that understanding. Yes, it's a reduction. Yes, the addition does not meet that, same height, but just technically this should still be treated as a D6 for purposes of the board's consideration.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? No? From our board professionals? No? Any from the public?
Excuse me.
Yes.
The only question I would have, or the comment I would have, would just to be confirm what revision date is on the plans that we're talking about from the architect for that.
The revision date, and they were the plans that I just put up for you. The revision date is stated as 12/22/20.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions from the public about this, about Ms. Young's application? No? I have one quick question for the Zons. I was looking at the Environmental Commission. They're asking for a landscape plan. Are you willing to do that?
We're definitely willing to submit a landscape plan. However, we would prefer to submit that plan a little further into the construction. I mean, we want to have somebody come in and tell us what they think is appropriate species to put in the, in the front of the house and the time of year and what's available. I don't want to put in a plan, promise something that is not available. So if that's a requirement, I didn't think it was a requirement in the zoning application, that wasn't a requirement, but if it is a requirement, we'll certainly submit it.
Yeah, I think that should be a condition, considering we have some water issues.
I'm also, if I may, I'm also looking at the forester's report, and there's a lot of commentary in there relative to trees, et cetera. And I would think that that landscaping plan should be approved by Mr. Linson.
Agreed.
There's a question.
Yeah, I just have a quick question on the
Can you
landscape.
state your name? And
yeah, Sarah Engel from 75 Woodland Avenue. On the other side of the Zon's house is Margaret Sherman. She is an elderly lady, and she shares the side of where the garage is being placed. And I was wondering, what protection will she get for the trees that are on her property when you start digging and putting in the garage and the landscaping in that corner? I don't know how you have 5 feet. Have you? What will impact trees that are on her side?
I think, yeah, maybe a question.
Go ahead, Miriam.
I was going to say that might be a question for, Jeff or Carolyn in terms of construction. But I will say that I and my husband have spoken to Margaret several times.
Okay.
We talked to her about our project. We talked to her about what our goals are, and she quote was, "Have at it." She wants us to do this project. She's actually looking to sell her house and move in with her daughter, and I think she's looking at our project as something that will be beneficial to her.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
all right. Okay, wonderful. Any questions, any comments now from the public about this project?
So I can go. I'm Blair, Blair Clark Shabe. I'm at 81 Woodland, so I guess 3 doors down. And I just want to say thank you. We're so excited about this project.
Swear in.
Yeah, let me just swear.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Yep.
If you could raise your right hand, please.
Sure.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please again state your name, spell your last name.
Blair Clark Shabe. So it's hyphenated. The first part is Clark, C-L-A-R-K. And the second part is S-C-H-O-E, B as in boy.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, so I just wanted to say thanks. I mean, we're so excited that the Zons are taking on this project. It's a beautiful old home that was thoroughly neglected. And, you know, you guys saw the picture from today. It looks drastically improved already just by cleaning up the front yard and, you know, removing everything that was on the porch. And I don't know, there was sort of a collection of things in the yard. So we are extremely appreciative to the work and the project, because this is not an easy project. But, you know, we think in the end, it's going to be worth it for us, the neighbors. I mean, we're so excited. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from comments from the public?
Yes, I have a comment.
And let me swear you in. If you could
Okay.
raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your name, spell your last name.
Anthony Radice, R-A-D-I-C-E.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned earlier, I live at the house next door, 69 Woodland, which is the house with the fence that's separated by the fence between 65 and 69. And I've been living here for 10 years, and there has been constantly water issues with the backyard. Even when it's not very much rain, it is usually soaked back there. And at some points when we had storms, I was back there with my waders on, clearing out the drain, which was up to 2.5, 3 feet of water back there. And that water went under the fence to my property, almost across the whole property up to my shed in the back. And it's a constant problem. There is water back there. I think dry wells would definitely help. You know, I'm glad that we're talking about this issue, because I'm amazed that the drainage pipe was totally missed in the engineer survey of the property. It's clear as day back there. There's bricks on top of it right now. But I think that definitely the water is a problem back there, and it's seeping under my fence into the yard. And I had to raise my yard when I did my renovation. I did a renovation in my house. I put a 17 by 17 patio in the back, and I had a survey from the city and told me that I needed to drop a 10 by 10 dry well, which had a capacity of 300 cubic feet back there, which was only catching water off my roof. So I think, and I had to grade the backyard so it wouldn't seep back to that corner. I'm trying to think what else. You know, I just wanted to see if there was a water management plan going on here. There's considerable amount of impervious cover going in the area with the back of the house, with the driveway, which is pitched back, and which Mr. DeRozier said, oh, it's just going to flow and seep in. It doesn't just flow and seep in. It's constantly wet. It's wet back there right now. And it comes to my part of the yard. So I really want to try and hopefully we'll get an evaluation about putting dry wells back there to take care of the water. Also, I guess that's mainly my issue, is just the water runoff back there. I think there's considerable amount of runoff coming from the driveway. And with the extra space from the second story in the back, which is going up, it's all going in one little area back there. And I think it's a lot of cover with trees, and I think it's a drainage problem for sure. So that's what I got to say.
Thank you. Mrs. Clark, do you
Yeah,
have
if I
another?
can, yeah, so if I can just add, I think, we are 3 houses down, so we don't live right next door. But I do think that there's a global issue of water behind our houses. As you all know, Shady Side is up above us. And so there's a lot of water that does come down onto these properties. And I think of all the properties, their property is probably the least at fault of any of this. It seems to come from, up above in different directions, but that's just so that, I wanted to point out that there's definitely a global issue that probably could be addressed by the city in some ways, more than just this property.
Yes, and unfortunately, Summit has an issue with water management
Just the name.
in all neighborhoods. And thank you. Any final comments from the Zons?
Mr. Engel, I think, is trying to get your attention.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't say.
I'd like to echo
Yes.
James Engel, 75 Woodland Avenue.
Please raise your right hand.
Oh,
Have to
sworn
swear
in.
you in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So I do.
And state your name, spell your last name, please.
James Engel, Engle, 75 Woodland Avenue.
Thank you.
I think this is going to be a great project. As Blair Shave said, it's an old home that is in need of TLC, but it's a great home. I do have concerns about the water. Jeff DeRosier talked about it as being a bowl or a basin, but for those who are to the right or the upper numbers, it's an upper basin. So if you get too much water, it's all going to flow over first to 69 Woodland, then 75, and then on down. So it's something that we need to address. But I think the project itself is a great project. Welcome to the neighborhood, Miriam and Chris. You'll love it here. Sorry, this is a tough way to meet your neighbors, but that's the only issue that I have, and I think it'll be a fantastic project, but water has to go somewhere.
Thank you. Mr. and Mrs. Zahn, do you have any final comments before we deliberate?
No, I think just the main issue that seems people are concerned about, and as we are as well in having a dry backyard, is the water. And we are definitely willing to put in a dry well and manage the water that comes off of our property or, is generated on our property. So that's something that we are, definitely willing to address, and we can, Jeff would start designing that with working with Mr. Dower.
Wonderful, thank you. Mr. Ball, can you list the conditions for us, please?
I sure can. So first, we have the usual compliance with the conditions noted in the engineer's report. The second condition would be that the applicants are to install a dry well in the backyard. Applicant's engineer shall confer with the board engineer regarding the size of the dry well to accommodate the impervious coverage increase. And the third condition is that the applicant shall submit a landscape plan to be reviewed and approved by the city forester. That's all I had.
Awesome.
So I have one more question.
Well.
Okay, no, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, because we're going to wrap this one up, but thank you. Who would like to start deliberations?
I guess I'll go.
Okay.
So with the conditions as they're presented, I am supportive of the application. I think, obviously water's a big issue in this area, and addressing that will go a long way towards rendering a benefit to the neighborhood. I drive up and down Woodland all the time, and certainly the house up until now had seen better days, and I think it will definitely be an enhancement to the neighborhood. So with the bringing a house to its former glory, or probably beyond its former glory, and enhancing the stormwater management in the area, I think renders a public benefit that certainly outweighs any detriments to the relief being asked for.
Okay, thanks, David. Anyone else? Joe?
I totally agree with you, David. It's a great idea, the great project. I am a little concerned about the missing pipe in the back. And I'm just wondering if there's any way that we could get add to that condition that we get the 3 engineers, the city engineer, Chris, and Mr. DeRosie, to get together and visit the site and come to a conclusion before we do our resolution to determine that no additional water is going to go, exacerbate this for anybody downstream, and that we can make this all work for everybody. And getting the city engineer involved may help the people upstream as well.
Are you thinking of that building that into the condition of consultation with Mr. Dower?
Mr. Dower and I guess Andy Schrager, and Mr. Schrager from City Hall.
I can add that in.
Thanks, Mr. Paul.
If that's agreeable to the property owners.
Well, I agreeable. The hesitation that I have in fully agreeing, however, is just, what size of the problem are we required to solve in order to move forward with this?
Your own water.
So yes, if there's a way to state the condition in a way that says we're taking on the problem of our property, but I mean, you could appreciate, I can't take on the solution of the shady side woodland water condition.
Wouldn't want you to.
Myself.
Hypothetically, let's say that particular drain pipe was installed by the city because it goes through two different properties. Starts on your side and goes over to the other guy. And we find out that the city is responsible for making sure it's clear and replacing the pump that wasn't there. It might help your case.
Look,
We just simply don't know, and I think getting those folks together would help.
If people can't come to an agreement, I think they could always come back to the board to find a solution.
And hopefully all this should be done long before our resolution is completed in 30 days anyway.
Catherine, did you have?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something to clarify. Well, first of all, I do think it's a great project. I'm definitely in favor of it. It seems like it'll be overall just much better for the neighborhood and enhancement of the property. And I like to see the old homes fixed up, and it's not an easy task. So thank you for doing that. It's commendable. I think about the water issue, I just want to clarify. It's very common for the board to ask that dry wells are put in. It's only to accommodate the runoff from your own property. But the reason that I think, at least I recognized it as an issue, is because if there's a big water issue there, the dry well can help a little bit because it accommodates the water runoff coming from your property, which currently is just going in the backyard and pooling. And this will supposed to slow down that seepage. So I just wanted to clarify that we're not asking for you to fix that whole problem, but this is one way to possibly improve it. And it's common for this to be done on these types of applications. So I just don't want you to feel like you are taking on the burden of your entire neighborhood and this water issue. The dry well will only be to accommodate the runoff from your property, but you have an increase in impervious coverage. And so this is a common ask to the zoning board.
Thank you. And I agree with the comments. I think this would be a wonderful update to this home because I walk by it all the time, and I've seen improvements already. So I would definitely approve this application. And with that, do we have a motion?
Can I jump in for 1 second? Can we just get the board to provide some additional deliberation on, I know the focus has really been the runoff and the water issues, but keep in mind there is a D6 variance at issue. Can we just get some comment about whether the application, whether the site can accommodate that deviation due to the building height?
I believe it can because actually they're not changing the height of the initial structure and the other one is lower. So it makes all the sense in the world to approve that variance.
I would agree. It's been accommodating that deviation for decades, so no reason to think it can't.
Thank you, guys.
Does that give you what you need, Andrew?
That was perfect. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, we can proceed. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Awesome. Chris?
All right. Mr. Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Ms. Schwartzstein,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Ms. Toth,
Yes.
and Vice Chairwoman Moore.
Yes. Thank you. And all the best with your project.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks,
Thank
you
you.
too.
Good night.
Steve's been watching.
Yeah. What we're going to do before we get to the next application, we're going to take a short break, give Michelle a little rest. Okay, so we're going to do a 5-minute break. So a little after 9.
Okay.
Let's do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. Oy. Oy. Oh.
Don't forget to mute your microphone. Thank you.
That was the easy one. Now we're going to the hard
All right, we've got a few more board members in here, and notably the court reporter, and then Mr. Sheen will begin. So just a moment, please.
Sorry, were you waiting for me?
No, not waiting for you, just a couple other folks. Thanks, Michelle. Hang tight, 1 sec.
I heard my name. I was like, oh no, I'm late.
No worries. Waiting on Mr. Millet, and then Chris, I think I can see your ceiling. Let me know when you're back. Oh, there's Mr. Millet. Oh no, that's his background. All right, Chris is here. Board members are present. Chris's cat will probably make an appearance at some point, but anyhow. All right, Michelle, you're good to go?
Good to go.
All right, thank you. All right, now, thank you very much. Well done. Well done. We'll proceed to the second application on the agenda this evening, 39 Park Avenue Builders, LLC. Mr. Sheehan, I believe, representing the applicants.
All right, Mr. Chairman, before I begin, may I ask for a roll call to make certain that all of my witnesses have logged in?
You may.
Zach Alberti.
Here.
Chris Simzak.
Here.
Bill Hollows.
Here.
And John Barry.
Here.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with that roll call, the application is ready to proceed. And I would ask for the indulgence of the board to make a preliminary introduction on an application that has as its history service at the site for a mason construction yard for the Chiera Masonry Construction Company. It has been in that condition for as long as I've been in Summit, which is in excess of 50 years. And recently, after the Chiera Construction Company stopped functioning, the property has been a problem in the area with respect to maintenance and the condition of the structure. So when the application was originally filed, the lot numbers were begun on Orchard Street with lot 15, lot 16 on the corner of Orchard and Park, and lot 17 on Park Avenue. As the application moved forward, the tax assessor considered that designation and changed it so that now the progression of lots is consistent, moving to the west on Park Avenue, 1314. Now, the first lot of this application is lot 15. The corner remains 16, and the lot proposed for Orchard Street is lot 17.01. So 15.01 on Park, 16.01 on the corner of Park and Orchard, and lot 17.01 representing the lot that is proposed to be on Orchard Street. The application will be clarified in the engineering plans to be presented tonight. And Krista Anderson, in her administrative review, made a good effort to clarify the lot numbering, but in her last reference, she called out lot 1501, which was formerly known as lot 1501. And Krista Anderson's review in that third lot should begin lot 1701, formerly lot 1501. This will be clarified in the subdivision presentation by the engineer, but I wanted to make that point at the outset in the event that any board members are looking at the application, which contains a myriad of numbers and can be at times a bit confusing when in reality it is a simple application in its presentation. And I would like to stop at that point to see if there are any questions at this stage with regard to the number of the lots in question that are proposed, and would attempt to answer them or to suggest for the board members to wait for the presentation of the engineer, who with the subdivision plan will give this greater clarity. Any questions on that point at this stage, please?
See any questions from the members of the board on that point, Mr. Sheehan? But I certainly, at least speaking for myself, would appreciate the efforts from yourself and your witnesses to continue to remind the board on this point. Just to think what you're trying to express, there are an awful lot of numbers for, in this case, 3 subdivided lots that can be a little confusing from time to time. So thank you for making a special effort there.
All right. In the testimony to follow, the application will begin with the proposed subdivision and proceed with the variance requests for the individual lots as though the subdivision was in place. And as the board deliberates, it will be abundantly clear when the application is ready for deliberation, which lots are which and which sequence prevails. There will be no question of a doubt about it. All right, having said that, the resulting lots that are proposed have certain commonalities that are useful for the board members to keep in mind as this application proceeds. The first commonality is that all of the proposed lots will have a greater lot area than the 8,406 square feet prevailing lot area as calculated under the provisions of the ordinance. All of the proposed lots will have a detached garage with an extended driveway, exacerbating the calculation for lot coverage. Without the extended driveways, it is submitted that the lot coverage would actually be consistent with and comply with the ordinance standard. The third commonality is that all of the proposed improvements require an enlarged FAR variance to accommodate an aesthetic enhancement rather than any increased habitable living area. None of the attic area will be habitable, and that will be made clear as the testimony of the architect, engineer, and principal will unfold. All of the lots proposed are proposed for a two-family use, which is a permitted use in the R5 zone and consistent with the prevailing circumstance and context of the relevant neighborhood. All of the lots have a front yard setback variance to accommodate an aesthetically desirable front porch entranceway with a proposed front yard setback that is substantially greater than the 10.44 foot average front yard setback in the relevant area, where 25 feet is required. And finally, all of the proposed garages have a height exception to match the roof pitch as permitted under the ordinance. All are less than the permitted limit of 18 feet. I would close the introduction with two final comments regarding the administrative reviews. The first is with regard to the Historic Preservation Commission review, which was apparently aided by Google Earth, which does not reflect the existing vacant condition of the lot. The structure, in fact, cannot be preserved because it does not, in fact, exist. The construction officials' review reflects a fitting summary of the longstanding use at this site when it states, "This subdivision, if granted, will go a long way toward addressing a longstanding property maintenance issue." If there are any questions at this stage, I would be happy to answer them. If not, I would call the first witness for the owner, Zach Alberti. The witnesses for the record, Mr. Chairman, will be Mr. Alberti for the ownership, Bill Hollows from Murphy and Hollows on civil engineering, Chris Simzak as the architect who designed the architectural plans, and John Barry from Hire and Gruel as the planner testifying on behalf of the application. So that concludes my introduction, and I would try and answer any questions in the event.
We'll just have, thank you, Mr. Sheehan. I think there's one question from Ms. Toth.
Thank you. Mr. Sheehan, the housing element and fair share plan the city adopted February 8th, 2018, identifies this property as potential overlay zone 7. Are any of your witnesses or experts going to address that aspect of the development?
The planner will consider it, although this is a fee application, not an inclusory application, Ms. Toth.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the board? And I think just Mr. Sheehan, it's fair to say, it being near 9:15 now, it's unlikely we'll conclude this application this evening. So, just ask that you allow us a couple of minutes as we near 10 o'clock to conduct some administrative matters we have, but otherwise, I ask you to kind of manage your case so that we can conclude this evening at a logical point.
All right, I think if we could take the testimony on behalf of ownership and Mr. Hollows, it will set the stage nicely for a break point with enough information in hand to inform the board members and set up what follows clearly.
Excellent. Please proceed.
All right, Mr. Nicola, I would ask that the testimony of Zach Alberti be taken in this matter and that he be admitted to the platform to be sworn for that purpose.
All right, and I'll swear you in. If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name for the record.
Is Zach Alberti, A-L-I-B as in boy, E-R-T-I.
Thank you. Counsel, your witness.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Mr. Alberti, are you a principal of 39 Park Avenue Builders LLC? And as such, are you designated to testify in this hearing on behalf of the applicant?
Yes, sir, I am.
Mr. Alberti, tell the board exactly what 39 Park Avenue Builders LLC is.
Park Ave Builders LLC is a single purpose entity formed to hold land and improvements at 39 Park Avenue. It's part of our development pipeline with subdivided liability. So each individual property will have its own LLC, but the partners are friends and family because that's the type of development portfolio that we put in the pipeline.
Right. Does your overarching company have an organizing philosophy of development?
Yes. We're known for Class A luxury developments with a high attention to detail and meticulous finish, coordination, and selection, particularly with interior designers. And for everything from, common areas to bedrooms to smart home technology to architectural facade finishes. And with respect to the facade, the contextual narrative of the neighborhood is something that we're very sensitive to, and we feel that we've been sensitive to on this application to try and keep that narrative consistent and better improve our lot.
In a word, would you consent to a description that described your philosophy as contextual development with aesthetic distinction?
Yes, sir. I think that's a good summary.
But is there a particular project that in your mind realizes that goal that you would like to point to?
We're definitely proud of every project that we've done, but I think on 313 7th Street in downtown Jersey City, we had to work closely with historic preservation and all of the material selections from cast stone to the brick to the window well designs to the cornice at the top, even down to the color of the cast stone. And the product, I think, stands out on the block. And not patting ourselves on the back, but I think it was a great addition to the neighborhood and something that we took their comments to heart.
All right, Mr. Alberti, let's turn to 39 Park Avenue. When did the LLC acquire that property?
We acquired the property in December 12th of 2019.
What was the condition of the then existing improvement and the lot itself?
Starting with the lot, it almost looked a bit of a dumping yard. The greenhouse structure that was there was completely dilapidated and not safe to go into. There was equipment and material in there, lots of tools, disparate. There was a tool shed that was also unsecured and dilapidated. All the tools in there were all rusted out. I believe the seller had some tomatoes and some agriculture. It just had overgrown into weeds and a bunch of dense brush in the back. And the same along the perimeter of the property is been covered with unkept brush. And then, did I lose you all? Or?
No, you're coming through now, but you stopped for a second.
Okay. And then in terms of the property itself, it was filled with the prior owner's personal effects as she was relocating and with family and unable to remove much of those items from the property. The porch was falling off the front of the house with lots of moss even growing through the ceiling. The basement is rather unsafe to go down in there with an old stone foundation and tons of winery and tomatoes and a bunch of rotten food down there in jars. And then the house itself, once we did an inspection, had some asbestos that needed to be abated, which we tended to as well.
Did you remove those structures that you described on the lot?
If I could just jump in for a second. Mr. Alberti, it looks like we lost you on video. Technically, under the remote meeting regulations, we're supposed to try and keep you on video if we can. So if possible. Oh, there you are. Perfect. Thank you.
I was going to address that issue,
Yeah.
but I was afraid to touch it because I know I'd close myself out. All right, you're back on.
I should be much better. Sorry about that.
Right, the question is, did you remove the structures that you have just described after you acquired title to the property in December of 2019?
Yes, sir, we did.
When did you do that, please?
So after closing on the property, we secured the home and the lot, and then we started to file for utility disconnections, setting pest control traps, and then also going through the permitting process with the construction department. So I would say it was probably within 4 months or so. I could follow up with the exact date.
All right. Now, before you retain professionals to develop the plans for this site, what did you do to inform your planning considerations for the site?
Yeah, so again, the neighborhood context is always very important to us. And so we spent times doing our own windshield survey of the neighbors, and even just walking the area. Beyond that, we looked at some of the newer developments that have been going on in the community and to see what the town had seen as, approvable, but also using that as context to inform what we would like to improve on this lot, make it unique. And then the zoning analysis, I went through the ordinance and saw the R5 zoning criteria in the two families. I reviewed the overlay zoning criteria, but didn't see that as attractive as, the two family use. And then from there went to design professionals to make sure it could lay out appropriately.
All right, what conclusions did you come to based on that analysis?
It was the two family homes was an ideal structure, but to try and create some varied context to the building materials to break up bulk. So we did some separations between each side of the two family. And then we also saw a lot of the homes had a higher pitched roof line. So we really liked those gables and wanted to keep that as a prominent architectural feature.
All right, which professionals did you retain to develop the plans necessary to reflect the development that you've just described?
Yes, sir. So we started out with a Pell Design Group for architecture layout and just looking at the zoning criteria. After we had a rough floor plan, we reached out to a very notable land use attorney in Summit, Mr. Sheehan. And then after that, it was civil engineering to further develop site plan with Mr. Bill Hollows. And then once the variances were understood and our narrative was understood, Mr. John Barry for our professional planner was brought in to help us tie all of our loose ends together.
Right now, did you commission a rendered elevation of proposed lot 16, the corner lot, for presentation this evening?
Yes, sir, we did. That'll be included as an exhibit in today's testimony, and it was prepared and coordinated with Appel Design Group.
All right, I'm going to ask Mr. Nicola if you could admit Mr. Simzak to the platform so that he could share his screen and introduce that elevation as, I guess, a 6, right, or a 7.
Yeah, Mr. Simzak is good to go. Is this something that was not submitted prior to?
I believe
No,
it.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Simzak, the question is, was this presented for entry into the docket prior to this evening? I don't believe it was it?
It was sent today.
It should be up on the website then.
I mean, I have it open. I can screen share it and show you on my machine if that works.
Okay.
And Chris, this will be introduced as A7. Please describe it, Mr. Simzak.
Okay.
Are we taking testimony, Mr. Simzak, now, or is this just to?
This is just to get the rendered elevation up, Mr. Ball. Mr. Simzak will authenticate it after he's sworn in.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the unit. We did two renderings. This is the unit on the corner lot, which is lot 16.01. And then I also have this is the rendering for the lot, what's being called 1701. And it's very similar to, I'm sorry, I just messed that up, didn't I? Let me go back. I got the same one. Nope, not that one. I'm sorry, just give me 1 second to get the rendering up. 15. Okay, I'm sorry. This is lot 17.01, and this will also be similar to lot 15.01, except it will be mirrored to it'll be a mirror image of this.
All right, so A7 is the rendering of lot 1601, and A8 is the rendering of 1701, so we keep the evidence straight, correct? Mr. Simzak?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So, Mr. Alberti, let's go back then to your question. Did you commission a rendered elevation of the proposed lot 16, the corner lot, for presentation this evening? And I will add to that lot 17, proposed lot 1701, and ask you whether or not these are the renderings of the buildings that you are seeking approval to construct.
Yes, sir. These are the renderings that were coordinated with our architect of record and were approved by us as ownership as our intended development.
All right. Now, does the renderings reflect the roof lines that you intend to build, which are 7-on-12 roof lines, ridge lines?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Is this your judgment, knowing that the floor area created by this elevated roof line increases the floor area ratio of each two-family unit by between 8 and 10%?
Yes, we do understand that that is a result of the gabled roof and albeit non-habitable, under the zoning definition would still increase FAR, but we just hope that the board is taking it into consideration of this not being habitable, whereas most of our neighbors have the high gable roof, and those are habitable spaces from what you can see with AC units, et cetera, but we're not intending that.
So when you say that it is not habitable, would that area be accessible? And if so, how?
Yes, sir. There'd be a pull-down roof, a ceiling hatch that could be accessed for any maintenance or service of any mechanical equipment or even just vents that may be protruding through that space. But the truss system alone prevents it from being usable for much else outside of that.
And that will be testimony under oath given by the architect, correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
All right. And it is your statement under oath that the increased attic floor area as described under the ordinances of Summit is in fact not a habitable space.
That is correct. It is non-habitable.
In the event that the board viewed the application favorably, would you consent to a condition of approval to assure this representation that the area would not be habitable in any one of the 3 units?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
All right. In the administrative reviews, in the zoning officer's review, she asked whether or not the applicant would be willing to consider modifying the roof pitches from 7/12 to 6/12 for the main structures with a proportionate modification of the garage ridges. Is that something that the applicant would find acceptable?
Yes, we'd find that acceptable if it's something that the board or its members feel to be significant. It will certainly meet that.
All right. Now, did you read the Forester's report and the Environmental Commission's report in the administrative reviews?
Yes, sir. I read all reviews.
Do you agree to abide by the Forester's request and to submit a landscape plan subject to the Forester's approval in the event that there is a favorable consideration of this application?
Yes, sir. We would look forward to coordinating with the city and the Forester in order to make sure everybody's boxes are checked.
All right. Now, did you perform any environmental evaluations at the site? I believe you talked about some asbestos removal, but did you do any other environmental review of the site?
Yes, sir. Any for sale development that we do has a minimum phase 1, and the phase 1 had as a historical use on site agriculture, and so that triggered an area of concern that required a phase 2 to be completed. The additional soil sampling yielded no high concentrations of contamination from historic fill or agriculture or otherwise, and therefore seemed to be suitable environmental conditions for residential use and for sale development.
All right, now, Mr. Alberti, I am going to go through the administrative reviews, which I have highlighted in areas that are of particular response from you. Excuse me. Do you agree that any air conditioning condensers will be placed in accordance with the standards applicable under the ordinance?
Yeah. Yes, sir. We will conform to that standard.
Do you agree with the administrative review of the fire chief with respect to the water main or the 6-inch water main required to be connected at the corner of South and Park? And that the hydrant should be upgraded to a 6-inch water main at the location at the expense of the developer.
Yes, sir. We'll have many utility connections to make in the street for the new development, and that will just be one more that we'll add on to the scope of work. So.
All right. Now I'm going to turn to the engineer's report and ask if you agree, as contained in paragraph 11 of that review, to install sidewalks along the entire frontage of Park Avenue and Orchard Street and an ADA compliant ramp at the intersection.
Yes, sir. So again, if the board feels strongly about it, we are happy to conform. The one thing we would like to point out is that there are no sidewalks to connect our development to, should that be included on our site, on either Park Ave or Orchard. And then our side of Orchard also dead ends, at one neighboring property, lot 18, and then you're at the train track. So I'd like the board to take that into consideration. It might look a bit out of place and not have the ability to connect to some of the adjacent parcels. But again, we're happy to conform if it's something they feel strongly about.
All right. Now, the engineer's report at paragraph 17 discusses the tree removal plan and parallels the forester's report. Do you agree that as a condition of approval, that the forester's report and the engineer's concerns with regard to tree removal could be carried as a condition of approval?
Yes, sir. We would start working on that immediately.
All right. The engineer also raised the issue of environmental issues related to the demolition that you have already addressed. The engineer also at paragraph 19 speaks of the location of the AC units, and he also references generators. Do you propose any generators for the site?
We don't intend to install a generator, but I am intending to have a stubbed out utility connection that would be able to service a generator, so that if a buyer ends up purchasing one, which it seems many people in West Jersey would like one, they can have an easier connection into their utilities in the home, but nothing installed separately.
All right, and anybody who would choose to install a generator would be bound by the ordinances of the city and would have to act accordingly, correct?
Yes, sir. All permitting and et cetera would be the responsibility of the buyer.
All right, now we've discussed the forester's report, and you are comfortable acceding to that, compliance with that report in its particulars as a condition of any approval in the event an approval is given. Correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct. Yes, sir.
All right, bear with me for 1 second, Mr. Chairman, please. All right, Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions of this witness. Would submit him to the examination of the members of the board and the interested public at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Sheehan. First, any questions from our board professionals, Mr. Dower, Mr. Snickes, understanding this is not necessarily a professional witness, but a representative of ownership?
I have no questions at this time.
Chairman, Ed Snickes from Burgess. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Yep.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to have two quick questions. One, I just didn't hear, I'm sorry, if you were going to change the roof line as Krista Anderson had identified. I'm sorry to ask that question again.
Yes, sir. We can meet the 6-on-12 standard that she had proposed in her review.
Okay. And then also, with regard to the building sizes themselves, you may have identified your, I guess, process in identifying the actual units and their sizes. And I noted that you have separate detached garages, and I know that's been identified as some of the driver for the impervious coverage. What was your rationale for that compared to attached to the buildings?
Yes, so when we were first looking at the development, we initially thought about having the garage be attached to the dwelling and even be something where you drive in and you're partially below grade and have that incorporated in somewhat of a basement plan. But we realized that it took away a lot of the living space, and so much of life now is confined to your home that we wanted to be able to maximize that living space and then also have the garage as much as possible tucked behind the property so that it wasn't a prominent of a feature for a vehicle as much as it was celebrating the new homes that people will be moving into.
May I follow up on that, Mr. Snickes?
Certainly, please.
Yeah, Mr. Alberti, did the fact that there is a predominance of detached garages in the immediate area also play into your judgment-making process?
Yes, sir. That's a very good point. The neighboring properties have front porches with a detached garage in the rear, and so that also was a design criteria we were trying to keep consistent on the block.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Questions from members of the board for this witness? Hearing and seeing none. Any questions from members of the interested public? It's just an opportunity for questions. And hearing and seeing none. Okay. And Mr. Ball, I would just make a quick note for us through Mr. Sheehan's thorough examination of this witness. I noted at least 6 conditions. Some of those which will be captured under approval of the engineering, acceptance of the engineering letter, for example. So, you know, when the further hearings do come about, we'll just need your help making sense of where those conditions are going to be captured.
Yep, I have 6 so far myself, but we'll clarify all that at the end.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Sheehan, if you'd like to proceed to your second witness, just keeping an eye on the time here. I have a reorg at the beginning of January, and I'd like to keep my job if I can. So please proceed.
But maybe what we can do is to have Mr. Hollows start, prove the subdivision, and then at that point, before we get into the myriad of calculations with respect to the individual lot variances, that might be a point at which you want to break.
I would appreciate that, and I suspect the other board members would as well. So thank you, Mr. Sheehan.
Or I would ask that the testimony of William Hollows be taken in this matter, and that he be sworn for that purpose if you would admit him to the platform, Mr. Nicola.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
William Hollows, Hollows.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, in the interest of time, would the chair and the members of the board consent to a stipulation with respect to Mr. Hollows as qualified to testify as an expert in the field of civil engineering?
He is. Welcome back, Mr. Hollows, ending our year on a high note. Please proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hollows, are you the engineer retained for civil engineering in regard to 39 Park Avenue?
I am.
How did you prepare for the civil engineering responsibilities required of you?
Well, the first thing we did was a survey and a topography of the subject property. And then we worked with the architect and the applicant to come up with a layout for the proposed homes for the lots, and we actually adjusted the lot line somewhat. Chris, Nicole, if you could bring up, I guess, why don't we do sheet 1 of the engineering plans first? There we go. Just kind of the background, the property is located at the corner of Park Avenue and Orchard Street. It consists of 3 lots, presently 15, 16, and 17. We don't show them on this area map, but I have an exhibit where you can see those. Presently, the lot is vacant, but previous to when we did the survey in the spring, there were structures on there, and I have an exhibit to show that. But I just want to give you kind of an overview of where you are. So the top of the drawing is the NJ Transit Railroad. To the right of the subject property is a residential area, and both sides of Park Avenue, a residential area with a mix of single-family homes, multifamily homes, and I would say there's probably more multifamily homes than there are single-family homes there. Some of the lots have garages in the back. Some of the lots have driveways that go to the back, but there's no garage. I don't recall, the lot directly across from us has a garage that faces Park Avenue, but again, it's behind the house. I don't recall any of the homes that have attached garages. When we go to the left of this drawing, we get into a mix of residential and commercial properties. You've got a deli on the corner of Orchard and Park. Next to that's a Domino's Pizza and a laundromat. And then both of those buildings appear to have apartments above on the second floor. When you go a little bit more to the left, you got more residential homes. If you go on Orchard Street, which is one way towards the top of the drawing, and when you make the turn, you go towards Roosevelt School, it's all residential. And again, it's a combination of single family homes and and multifamily homes. Some are duplexes or doubles, and some of them are multifamily. I think I saw one that was 4. And diagonally across the street is the vacant plumbing building with a parking lot. And on Cottage Lane, there's single family homes there. And again, going to the left of the drawing, you've got some more multifamily homes on the southerly side of Park Avenue. That's just kind of give you an overview of what the neighborhood is like there. Now, Chris, if you could call up.
Yeah, hey, Mr. Hollows, before
Yes.
you leave that one, can you indicate the zoning of the property directly across the street on Orchard Street? Is that in fact a neighborhood business district as opposed to an R5 district?
I actually don't have that on my drawing, but I can check on that.
If I offered that as a representation to the board, would you dispute it?
No, I would not. Not at all.
All right. Why don't you describe the condition of the property that you observed and then take us through the subdivision, please?
Sure. Chris, if you could call up the exhibit A4, it's a rendered drawing of the 3 lots as they sit out there today, represented by 3 lots today. And when we surveyed this property back in the spring of 2020, there was on the property a 2.5-story single family structure a large driveway that comes in and goes behind the property, a brick patio, a shed. There were remains of a greenhouse towards the middle of the property, and then a couple of more patios sitting out more in the middle of the property. There were some scattered trees in the middle of the property. There are trees along Orchard Street. There's bamboo along Park Avenue. And there's a little opening, the adjacent lot, which I believe is 14, towards the top of the drawing. There's a little opening there, and then you get back into some more bamboo. And today, if you were to drive out there, the property is vacant. All the trees in the middle of the property are gone. The trees along the perimeter and the bamboo remain. And that's really, if you've been out there to the site, I just wanted to make sure you knew that at one time there was a considerable amount of impervious coverage on this site, and it was improved. I think if we can go to my exhibit A3, that's the proposed subdivision. And technically it's a subdivision. Realistically, it's a lot line adjustment. We're just realigning the three lots to make a better building envelope. The present three lots are narrow. They're 50 feet wide, or a little bit more than 50 feet wide. And they go from Park Avenue to the back of the property with a very narrow building envelope. We thought readjusting these lot lines made a lot more sense. And then on the top of that drawing is also the table of lot width of the prevailing setbacks, prevailing lot areas, and it took into account 10 lots, and they happen to be the three to the right of our subject property, the three across the street, the three on Park Avenue, three across the street on Orchard Street, and then the adjoining lot on Orchard Street, which is the top of the drawing. And the average lot area came out to be 8,406 square feet. The average lot width is 64.4 feet, and the average front yard setback was 10.44 feet. We're proposing these three lots, and if we go in a clockwise direction, and I'll probably call it the interior lot for Park Avenue, that'll be 15.01. We're proposing a lot area of 10,500 square feet, a lot width of 78 square feet, or 77.8 that's the setback line. The corner lot, and since we're proposing a two-family home there, requires 10,000 square feet. This lot would contain 12,000 square feet. This lot would contain 10,549 square feet. It's the variance that we were requesting. And then the lot width on Orchard Street is at 134.9 feet, and on Park Avenue it's 79.1. We're already exceeding the average or the prevailing for the neighborhood. Lot 17.01 is the interior lot on Orchard Street, and that would have 10,785 square feet with a lot width of 83.7. That lot, not as rectangular as I would like, because the lot line kind of pinches into the back. The lot width at the street is a lot wider than it is in the back.
Right, Mr. Hollows, let's stop you right there and ask you to once again call out the lot numbers of the proposed lots and see if the board members have any question or uncertainty about that, based on the fact that the filing contained a different sequence of lot.
The interior lot on Park Avenue is 15.01. The corner lot is 16.01, and it always was 16. And the interior lot on Orchard Street is 17.01. So the Orchard Street lot and the interior lot on Park Avenue have been flipped. The interior lot in Park is 1501 now. The interior lot in Orchard is 17.01.
And that sequence runs in order, running west on Park Avenue, correct?
It does.
All right. Now, Mr. Chairman, at this point, in Mr. Hollow's presentation, we would be going over each of the lots with a reflection on each one of the dimensional standards that apply to the lot and require variance relief. It will take at least 30 to 45 minutes to get through this testimony. And I'm going to suggest or request an evaluation as to how the board wants to deploy the time available and make a judgment and give instructions, which we will follow.
Well, if there ever was such a thing as a cliffhanger, I think this would be it. So what I would recommend is we conclude Mr. Hollow's testimony for this evening, and with your consent, carry this case. Chris, I believe we discussed the next available session would be February 17th, 2021.
Yeah, we have a lot on the upcoming agendas. Bart, how much time would you say you need for, let's say, to complete an entire hearing for this?
I would say maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Okay, so you need your own agenda. So 17th is the best case for you.
2/17?
Yeah, should be a Wednesday.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. We'll return on the 17th of February and pick up Bill Hollow's testimony, hear from the architect and the planner, and respond to any concerns or questions from the board or members of the interested public.
Are you waiving time as well, Bart, for the board to act?
Yes.
And it will be carried without further notice.
Thank you, Mr. Nicola.
If the board wants to, at least. I can't make that call.
Yes, well, thank you very much, Chris. Thank you, Mr. Sheehan. We'll carry then until February 17th. And Chris, just to confirm, Mr. Sheehan will have the full meeting to hopefully conclude this case. That's correct?
Yes, there's nothing scheduled on that agenda at this point.
Okay, excellent.
Do you need a motion to carry to that date without further notice?
I'll gladly take a motion. Mr.
So
Steiner,
moved.
excellent. There's a second.
I'll second it. It's Catherine.
Schwartzstein, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Mr. Sheehan.
Thank you. Be safe, be well, and best of the holidays for everyone.
See you in the new year. All right, with that, Mr. Nicola, if you'll help move us through these resolutions and minutes before we adjourn for the year.
Sure. First resolution is 149 Beechwood Road, application ZB-20-2029. Eligible voting members are Chairman Spur, Vice Chairwoman Newell, Mr. Steiner, Mr. Mullen, and Ms. Schwartzstein. Would somebody like to move the approval?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Chairman Spur,
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
and Ms. Schwartzstein.
Yes.
Okay, and our second resolution is 10 Blackburn Place, which is application ZB-20-2024. Eligible voting members are Vice Chairwoman Newell, Mr. Steiner, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Schwartzman, and Mr. Millay. And we need a motion for that as well.
So moved.
Second. Steiner.
All right, Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Ms. Schwartzstein,
Yes.
and Mr. Millay.
Yes.
All right, and we have a set of minutes from November 16th.
Chris, can I just jump in for 1 second? I think, did you say the Beechwood resolution, the docket number on that was at 2029?
That's what I have, yes.
I believe that should be 2019. I think that's just a typo on the agenda. 2019 is what I had on the draft resolution.
I think the 2029 is right. Let me see if I can pull this up fast enough.
Okay.
All right, here we go. I have 2029 in the staff comments as well. So if you have 19 in the resolution, then I
I
think
think we had 19 in the resolution. I just pulled up the transcript, which also had 20-2019 as the docket number. But if it should have been 2029, then we can just administratively correct that on the resolution itself if it hasn't been already.
Okay. I think it's 2029, and we can administratively change it if we need be.
Great.
If the board is agreeable to that.
The board is agreeable to that. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. And minutes.
Figure it out, guys.
All right. Who wants to move the minutes from November 16th?
I don't believe I was there, so I don't think I can.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right. And all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Seeing none.
Excellent. And then just as I mentioned, we're foregoing the acceptance of professional appointments in this meeting so that we can carry it for the first meeting of the year. That is necessitated because there is a substantial number of turnover, number of seats technically turning over for the board. And we need the governing body to do its reorg, us then to reorg, and then the first order of business thereafter will be for us to approve professional appointments. Though from my most recent conversations with each of the board members, there has been no changes and we don't expect any changes from those last conversations. So with that, we can adjourn for the year.
Steve, is there any reason that services would not be provided by any of the professionals whose terms expire and contracts expire on December 31st? Do we have interim agreements with them through our date?
So it's the opinion, and it's most applicable or most important, frankly, for our work, the zoning board attorney services, and it's the opinion of Mr. Galvin, our outgoing board attorney, that his services would continue until a new appointment is made. So that would help us bridge that gap. But
Okay.
it's only.
I just want to make sure we get the reports we need for the January meeting, and that they're not held up from Mr. Dower or Mr. Snakis or whomever we need to get them from.
Barring a glass of eggnog or two, I'm sure Mr. Dower and Mr. Snekis will provide their usual high standard of service. So.
It's the old bureaucrat in me. I'm sorry.
Excellent. All right, then barring any further questions, we'll be adjourned for the year, and happy holidays all. Happy New Year.
Happy holidays and
Thank
Happy New
you
Year.
so much.
Holidays.
Bye.
Merry ho ho.